This week we're going to look at.
Real quick. Y'all loud over there. Y'all know we hear y'all, right? Y'all real loud. Hold it down a little bit.
Thank you very much. Let's look at Luke 14, 25 through 35 and talk about the cost of a discipleship. The cost of discipleship. We are going to deal with the words of the Master, all the places where Yeshua speaks. And we'll talk about the things that he said as well as the situations that caused him to speak. If we look over at Luke 14, we're going to read Luke 14, 25 through 35. Luke 14, 25 through 35.
Luke 14, 25. And large crowds were going with him and turning. He said to them, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, and his own life too, he is unable to be my taught one. And whoever does not bear his stake and come after me is unable to be my taught one. For who of you, wishing to build a tower, does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid the foundation and is unable to finish it, and all who see it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was unable to finish. Or what sovereign, going to fight against another sovereign, does not sit down first and take counsel whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000? And if not, while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks the conditions of peace. So then every one of you who does not give up all that he has is unable to be my taught one. Down 35?
Yes.
Okay. The salt is good, but if the salt becomes tasteless, what shall it be seasoned? It is not fit for land, nor for manure. They throw it out. He who has ears to hear, let him hear.
All right. Very good. Let's go back up here and look at the beginning, verse 25. It's interesting when we see Yeshua, he goes along, he goes forth, he has many people following him. He said literally following. I don't mean like being followers, but literally walking behind him. Right? He's a celebrity. It's interesting when we look at celebrities and we think about what that is. We're looking at this person, we're so intrigued by these characters, and we want to know all about them and see what they do and how they act and watch them and all of these things. But this is happening kind of in this ancient context where they don't have these technologies that are able to you're not able to take your picture and post it and show where you're at. Meet me down at the so and so. I'm over here turning up. He's just walking around and people are following him and crowds. He's so popular. People are just, Yeshua, oh, there's Yeshua over there. And people just go. People's running to where he is. And then at some point, there's so many people, he decides, I guess I walked far enough. Maybe I'll stop and talk to these people. So it looks over here, we look at verse 25, the people are literally following him. They're literally walking after him, and he turns around because they're behind him. He's just minding his business, walking, and he turns to them and begins to speak to them and starts talking to them about what it would mean to be a follower. It's so interesting. They're following him, literally walking where he's walking. They're following him. They're stepping in the places where his feet used to be at, and then they catch up, and then their feet are there. They're following him. And then he turns around and begins to talk to them about what it actually means to be a follower. And he does it in a very strange way. Can you read verse 26 again?
If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters and his own life too, he is unable to be my follower.
Wow. Wow. Let's look at that. Let's look at that word. Look up that word there, hate. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters
And your son.
and his own life too. Hate. What's that word there? Miseo. Hatred. Detest. Especially to persecute. By extension, to love less. So it's interesting that the scriptures, they put their definition they like the best. They're to love less. But typically when you get to the bottom of these things, it's kind of like it's not really what it's literally saying. Typically the first words that are there is kind of what the thought of the word is. And it could be used in a way, it even says here by extension, to love less. But it literally means hatred, to detest. It especially means to persecute. Which if you're persecuting someone, you're only persecuting them because you detest them. We're learning this in our studies. That's in our studies. We're learning this in our studies about oppression and things that. Yes, the pedagogy of oppression.
Yes.
That the only way that you're able to oppress someone is to first devalue that. I'm reluctant to even say person because you're not even thinking of them as a person, and that's why you're able to oppress them in the first place. I saw something interesting. There was this lady was talking about racism and oppression. She had this picture of a lynching, and there was a little girl like standing right there, and the person that was lynched was literally right there, and the little girl had like a little smirk on her face, like in the picture. And somebody was literally hanged and like brutally beaten and dead right there. A little kid, like a little kid with a little smirk. Right? But if it was like a dog, a puppy, she probably would have been traumatized by that. But because there's such a devaluing of a person to make it seem like they're less than a puppy, you're able to stand there and see somebody brutally murdered, and it don't faze you, right? Because they're not even people, right? And so to persecute
Got to.
In order to do that, there got to be a predecessor of that, which is hatred. And so, I don't like this. I don't like the softening part to love less. I don't like that because that's not the fullness of what that word is. Let's look at a couple verses in the Old Testament, because the Septuagint, the Greek Old Testament, uses this word here in Genesis 29 and 31. Genesis 29 and 31, it uses that word there as what do it say? 29 and 31.
And Yahweh saw that Leah was unloved, and he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren.
Unloved, it says there.
Unloved.
But the word is our word, that's to hate. Right? Hate. The Hebrew word there, what's the Hebrew word that's used there? The Hebrew word, so whenever the scribes translated the Hebrew into Greek, the Hebrew was this word here, which literally means to hate, enemy, foe, hateful, hater, odious, utterly. There's no remnants picture of love at all in the Hebrew word, and they gave it a Greek word, the closest one that they could find, which is this word that we were looking at. But think about Leah here in the historical record here. She literally was unloved, right? Unloved. She was hated. She wasn't the one that he wanted, and the Most High had to kind of step in and kind of open up her situation, right? She wasn't treated in a particular way, which the Hebrew gives us as hatred. Let's look at another place, Deuteronomy 21 and 16, where in the Septuagint, in the Greek translation of the Old Testament, the word that's used in the New Testament is the same word. Deuteronomy 21 and 16.
Then it shall be on the day he makes his sons to inherit his possessions, he is not allowed to treat the son of the beloved wife as firstborn in the face of the son of the unloved, who is truly the firstborn.
Okay, very good. So again, these words here, it's the same Hebrew word, but in the Greek, this word is translated as a word that we see in the New Testament. And these two things are kind of the antithesis of each other. Right? It's not like a lesser version. It's the antithesis of it. There's a wife that he loves. There's one that he hates. So he wants to deal with the one that he hates, the child of that one. He wants to deal with that one in a way that he would deal with the baby mama. And so the Most High said, you could hate the baby mama, but the son got to get what he's supposed to get. Okay? So these words here, they're kind of anti each other. Love, hate.
It's the antithesis.
It's the antithesis. Go ahead.
So when Yeshua says that about, you should hate to follow me, is it a righteous hate? Because like,
That sounds good.
is that pushing it? Because I wonder, because I remember when I was at my lowest, when he had found me, I didn't hate those people, but there was a separation that could have been a hate in their eyes, but it wasn't a hate, but it is a hate, I guess, because he says it's a hate.
Yeah.
But it was not like a hate where I want them to die hate. But it was like, there was a separation. So I'm just
What we have to be able to do is think about, like, even in this case, it's about your actions here. Right? You have this wife that you don't treat the way that you treat the one that you actually like. You treat that one good. This other one, you don't treat good. And so how is it that you're treating them? You're treating the one with love. You're treating this other one with the opposite of that. And so I'm saying that we're finding in these scriptures where it's going back and giving us the same word that is used over here. And we're finding out that this hate that it's talking about isn't soft. It's not a soft hate. He's saying that I can't have you dealing with this one who is truly the firstborn. I can't have you treating them the opposite of hate. So he's strengthening this idea of it actually being what it says. Like, oftentimes we think about fear and we want to make fear be something that's other than what it is. Oh, it's the Most High. I can't be afraid. He loves me. I can't be afraid. But if he's literally saying fear, and the word that he's using is literally fear, what are we talking about here? I mean, we're going to get to the bottom of it, but we're just looking and saying that this word it shouldn't be softened. It means what it says.
Yeah.
Now we got to figure out why he's using it later, but I'm saying that the word it means what it is. I just want to look at one more, just to strengthen the situation over here in Malachi 1 and 3.
Malachi 1 and 3. But I have hated Esau and have laid waste his mountains and his inheritance for the jackals of the wilderness.
Okay, so I loved him less and didn't give him nothing. Matter of fact, I gave the stuff that I was going to give him, I laid it waste. Right? The way that he is treated is all bad. It's not a little bit bad, it's just bad all the way around. And so I'm saying that these words that are being used on purpose, and they're not soft words. It's hard. And so, what is Yeshua talking about? Because think about what it is that he's saying. He's saying to hate your father. That's
horrible.
That's
against the
above the commandments.
Now we done said something now. Because we're supposed to honor our father and mother. That word kavod, we supposed to put weight on our father and mother. The things that they say have been said. Right? And you pay attention to those things, right? It even said that you supposed to hate. It said that and your own life too. But hold on, what do Leviticus 19 and 18 say?
Leviticus 19 and 18. Do not take vengeance or bear a grudge against the children of your people. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am God.
Oh my goodness, you're supposed to love your neighbor the same way you love your own self. So you got to love yourself. But Yeshua said you got to hate yourself. What is he saying? He's saying that you can't do this? If he's saying that, he's making you break the commandments. So he can't be saying that. But that don't mean that he's not using the words that he's using. He's using those words. But we can't take the words and say, well, he ain't using them words. He's his emphasis. Like it's like You got to have an understanding. Now, again, when we get back to what it means to hate, there's actions that's involved. I'm going to deal with you in a certain way. Or if it's love, I'm going to deal with you in a certain way. The context is about being his top one, being his disciple. You can't be his disciple and the things that he's calling for you to do is stopped by whatever else is going on in your life. Like, you got to be able to put Yeshua on top of all of the things. You can't say, well, I'll follow you, but I got to be over here and do this thing over here real quick. We seen how that play out. People sitting up here dying, and Yeshua like, let the dead bury the dead. You come with me. Meanwhile, your people done died. Right? It's about prioritizing. It's about what you is actually willing to do. Because you're talking about being a follower, right? This is what he's talking about in the first place. As the people are following him. Oh, you want to follow me? Let me tell you what it takes to follow me. And so again, Yeshua is not telling these people that they need to sin in order to be disciples. You can't hate your own life. You're supposed to love yourself, and that's how the way that you treat yourself, that's how you understand how to treat other people. In fact, treat these other people the way that you treating yourself. And so he's using the words, but the thing that he's saying is dealing with priorities. Who you gonna put on top? You gonna put Yeshua on top? Or you gonna put all of these people?
Well, I think about like just even the concept of work or whatever. Sometimes the employer wants you to put work over your family.
Sometimes.
Yeah. And they'll say, oh, well, then people gotta be like, oh, well, I gotta be there for my child's whatever. And they're like, no, you gotta do this job here. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I feel like with Yeshua, he's like, I need you to put me on, I'm not to be put second here. If you really want to follow me, you really got to follow me.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when we think about what's going on, it's about discipleship.
Mm-hmm.
Because once they've gone through this whole situation, now it's time for them to go out and really care about what's going on with these people. But they got to get to a place first. And so that's another thought about it. It's like you got to come and put these 10,000 hours in. There's a job that you need to do, and if you don't put this time in, you're not going to be able to go out and do the thing. One of the last things that Yeshua talks to Peter about is saying, feed my sheep. There's a care that one is to have for the people. But he's talking about coming and being a top one. He's talking about coming and actually becoming a follower, and there's things that are involved in that.
Comment says a phrase that comes to mind is undivided attention.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, for extended periods of time. Unspecified at the moment.
I was still thinking, like, in the beginning, like, when these people were following him turning around, and, because, like you said, they were, like, seeing him as, you know, YouTube, as we see it today. And he looked back and was like, it ain't going to be like what you think it is. You're going to basically have to die. And that's the way I was feeling like when I brought that up. Because what he said to me, so I just went back to the day that he told me, you know, when I had that option, when I was looking, and he was like, look back at me. I felt that feeling. He was like, it's all about to go away. And that's where I was, that's where I'm coming. That's where I keep, like, going back to at the time. It's like, you're going to have to die.
Yes, it's absolutely about self-denial. He's saying not only those people, but your own self. You got to deny them. You got to deny your own self. You got to deny whatever it is that these people will have for you to be doing. And you have to also deny what you yourself think that you're supposed to be doing. And follow him. That's what he's saying. Be his disciple. Be his top one. And then he takes it a step further, right? He takes it a step further. So you hating all these people, you hating yourself. And then in verse 27, what did that say in 27 again?
And whoever does not bear his stake and come after me is unable to be my top.
So if you can't deny father, mother, sister, brother, self, and also bear this stake, you can't be a disciple.
I'd be like, wait, I gotta die. What are you saying here?
Well, you're going to die anyways, that he tells you that. No, that's what he told me.
Yeah.
You're going to die anyways, but die this way.
I'd be like, wait.
He was like, that.
This is interesting because Yeshua didn't die yet, obviously. And it's not kind of known as to how he is going to die anyway. He kind of hints on the fact of him and the sign of Jonah and these things and him going away and this and that. But nobody knows what's really going to happen. And then so for him to use this terminology, what is he even talking about? Right? Because when he talk about this idea of bearing your stake, yes, it goes back to this idea of crucifixion. Pull that word up there. 27. Cross, that word 47. Storos. Stake, post, set upright, whole. Cross, instrument of capital punishment, exposure to death, self-denial, the thing that Yeshua did. But again, at this point, that stuff didn't happen yet. But the idea of bearing your cross is a thing. Because part of this whole situation, when them being in this Roman culture helps them to understand, because the Romans, they were expert killers. They were experts at torture. And so it was well known that, what that looked like, crucifixion. And part of the thing was the person that was sentenced to be crucified, they was beaten. First of all, they was beaten. They was scorched. And then they had to carry the cross to the place that they was going to be executed. And so the idea of carrying your cross, carrying your stake is put in that context, but it's kind of euphemistically used here because he's talking about the idea of bearing this heavy burden of self-denial.
So, or how about even self-nullification?
Right, because you're about to die. Right? And you're participating in the process of your death. Because you had to carry that thing. You had to, the thing that's killing you, you have to feel the weight of it and carry it to the place where the execution is carried out. And so you're participating in your death, really. And you're feeling it. And so, but Yeshua's using this terminology talking about his disciples. And so there's a process that you're buying into, that you're participating in, that's weighty, but it's part of the process. And you must do it. You can't get out of it. Like you can't not do it. It's mandatory. There's no way around it. Like you gonna take this thing over there and you gonna hang on it and die.
They gave him the job description.
He definitely gave them a job description, and the job description is having an understanding of the immense burden that is incorporated in the thing. And so these people want to sit up here and follow and heal me, whatever.
Yeah.
I want to just sit at your feet. Oh, you want to sit at my feet? That's what you want? Like he's let the people know. Like people will come and they'll heal the people, but for you to stay here, like the people came and then they wanted from him, but for them to stay there and really be with him and be disciples, there's a cost.
He wanted to get rid of the tire kickers. He's like, all right, we send the herd a little bit, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let me tell
Which
y'all
and
this.
he does this from time to time.
Yeah.
Various ways.
And drink my blood.
I know. There's
That's
all of these
cool,
things,
yeah.
right? But at the end of the day, when the real specifications come out and let you know, and even here, he's not really saying what it is, but it's a weighty, heavy thing that you getting yourself into, and I need you to know this ain't just gonna be some old regular things going on here. Like this is something like unto death.
To comment real quick, it says, my daughter and I were talking about suicide recently. Can you elaborate more on how that's different than what it is you're talking about?
Suicide? Okay, so when we're talking about physically killing yourself, like it's done. Like that's over. Like the lights go out. When we're talking about denying yourself or in this context, it's about your will. It's about your desires. It's about the things that you are striving to do that are connected to your appetites and the things that you in yourself want to do. Even the way that he began it, like with your loved ones and yourself. You have your own desires, and it's not even wrong things, because your parents in the perfect situation are going to be steering you in the right direction. But he's saying that you have to refocus your life and focus on him, on Yeshua only. And so when we're talking about this idea of death or dying to self, to die to your own carnal desires, the things that you think that you want to be doing. Right? Don't really have anything to do with suicide. It's a whole other thing.
Yes.
I never heard it described that way. But it makes, there's a little, because you have to die,
Yes.
and be reborn.
Right. But like the self, the you, the nefesh, your soul is your will and your desire and things. I love to eat cookies. I love to look at comic books or whatever. Like the things that you love to do, that's your will and your desire. The things that you love, I love to play with doll babies. Like these things that you love to do, that's your will and your desire. Yeshua is saying that you need to concentrate on whatever it is that he is having for you to be doing. And if you're not willing to not do that, then, you can't even get in to the thing. And so in that way, you're dying to self. You're dying to your desires.
You're not even teachable, basically, because then you can't be a thought.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but the top one is disciple.
Yeah.
Right? The top one is disciple, which is another thing that we have to think about, because when we think about, look at that word top one there in 27. Disciple, pull that up there, 31 over. Look at the word study. Word study it says learn, understand, learner, pupil, all that down, but it is an adherent who accepts the instructions given to him and makes it his rule of conduct. That's what a disciple is. So Yeshua is saying how one is supposed to live, and you live only that way. We're kind of removed from this idea because, they understood this. They give examples here like the disciples of John. John the Baptist had disciples. They went around and John, he taught them things, and they did those things which he taught. We don't learn much about John's disciples other than the fact that he had them. But the Pharisees now were able to see and think about the fact that the Pharisees had like a way of life. And they all held to this particular way of life. And they all did things the same. They had little groups together within themselves where there was a teacher, and then the ones that was under the teacher, they did all of the things that he did. They like ate the same foods. They liked the things that he liked.
Today,
Did
I think about the Rebbe, like the different Jewish dynasties right now,
yeah.
and the Lubavitchers, they wear the fedoras, just like their Rebbe did, and
Yes.
it's like they do things similar to the way that the
Yes,
the
but
Rebbe is.
because they're emulating the teacher.
Emulating, that's right.
Right? And so this is the idea. And so the teacher is presenting a particular thing, a particular way of life, and you're living your life according to that. And so this is the thing that Yeshua is talking about in terms of him. Like, if you want to follow me, then you're going to have to actually follow me. You're going to actually do the things that I do, say the things that I say, don't do the things that I don't do, and don't say the things that I don't say. Matter of fact, don't even think about the things that I don't say for you to think about. Like, this is what it entails. And he's given these people this idea. I mean, look at what he does with his 12 disciples. The ones that's closest to him. They all had their lives that they had. He comes along and say, stop doing that and come do this. Right now. Let's roll. You and me now. And the thing that I like about, especially with, people talk about potentially Peter and his brother, and also John and his brother. People talk about them potentially having a fishing business together. And early on in the situation, when he meets them, they have this whole thing about, catching so many fish that they couldn't even pull all the fish in. It was beginning to sink because they got so many fish. And so I think about kind of in a real way, like if they're doing these things for their families to eat. And he's saying, don't work for your family, come and do this for me. But I feel like first he had them hit the lottery first. First he provided for them in a major way so that they was able to realistically be able to go and do these things. Because he's not going to have for them just forget their family. Even though we just see him saying, stop what you're doing, come with me. But I'm saying we also see them they gather in so many fish that their boat ain't even big enough for them to even carry all of the fish. And then after that, he say, all right, let's roll. You done with this for right now.
Isn't that kind of what he did to Hagar's Ishmael? He said that Ishmael would be blessed and but go.
Yeah.
You have to roll. You have to leave them alone.
Yeah, and it was like even a trusting thing had to happen because they left out with like a piece of bread and some drink. But the Most High provides for it, right? And so this idea that Yeshua is trying to bring forth is the fact that this discipleship, this situation that you're getting yourself into is a serious matter. It's a weighty matter. It has, there's a lot weighing in on it. It's not going to be easy. It's the way that he's comparing it to this idea of bearing your cross. If you're not able to take this self-denial and participation in your own death, can you imagine like what is the idea? Now again, this is used in a euphemistic way. He's saying it to make a point. If you're not able to participate in like walking to your own death, like if you're trying to take somebody over just to get a spanking, they got to get drug over there. But you coming back from a spanking, you ain't coming back from this. Like, are you supposed to just walk there, like on your own? But this is part of the process. And so, this idea of bearing the cross has to do with this suffering that's built into the process that you have to intentionally participate in. On purpose. All right, let's keep on going. Let's go down to. Okay. Read again for us, 28 through 30.
Okay. For who of you wishing to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid the foundation and is unable to finish it, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, "This man began to build and was unable to finish."
Okay, so he said this idea of building this tower, building this significant structure. The structure that you're about to build, this thing that you're getting into, is a significant thing. So who gets into this kind of a thing just willy-nilly? Like if you're going to just say building a tower. Who gets into this thing and don't have no kind of plans involved in it? Do you even got enough money to make it through? You gonna count the cost, and so how much more so if you're talking about following after Yeshua? But it's interesting that part of the thing is the idea of someone looking at your failed attempt and then mocking you as a result of it, and that being part of a thing that you should have in your mind as to why you might have potentially done it different. In this case, if we're talking about being a follower of Yeshua, you're a representative of Yeshua. And so Yeshua, like, we can't have you sitting up here following me and do it halfway, because that points back at him. Yeah, they mocking you, but you said you was a follower of me, so it comes back to him.
That's right. I think about people that want people on the faith to fail. Like, you know, they look at families raising up their kids and being like, just wait till they grow up and see what they choose or what they do. It's like they're just like waiting to try to mock. You know what I mean? It's like people really do be waiting for people to fail.
Yeah, but
With
what Yeshua is saying over here is that who is that really
Yes.
pointing at?
Yeah.
You know, on the surface, yeah, it's pointing at you. Look at you. You started it. You couldn't even finish.
Like, who's your God? Reminds me of like when Moses told Yahweh to repent when he was about to destroy Israel, because they were doing something. I don't know if it was from when he came off the mount. Can't remember. He was like, "Don't do that, because everybody's gonna be like, why did your God bring you up out of Egypt just to kill you?" And Yahweh was like, "Okay, I won't do it." But it's not the same. But it just reminded me.
I mean, it kind of is the same. It kind of is the same. Because at the end of the day, it goes back to the top.
The top.
Yeah, it goes back to the top.
The what?
Top. T-O-P.
Oh, I thought you
It goes
said
back
top.
to the top.
Okay.
You're the one that's seen at the bottom, but at the end of the day, it goes back to the one that's at the head. And so we see even here the idea of being a representative. Oh, he couldn't finish. Well, why couldn't he finish? Maybe he wasn't worthy. You know, that's just looking at you, right? But when that happens, you become a stumbling block to somebody else. They're looking at you like, that person, I thought they was the most righteous person that there was. And they couldn't do it? Oh, no, I can't do it then. But go over to Hebrews. Go to Hebrews 7 and 25.
Hebrews 7:25. Therefore, he is also able to save completely those who draw near to Elohim through him, ever living to make intercession for them.
Okay, so we have to understand that Yeshua in us is able, it says, to save completely. And so when we have a right relationship with the Master Yeshua, he's able to cause us to be completely saved and together with him. And so it really is a representation of him if we were to fail. And Yeshua knows this, and this is what he's saying over here when he's saying what he's saying. Like, you got to count the costs. You got to understand what you're getting yourself into. You got to understand, if you saying that you want to be a follower of me, you can't also be a follower of this one or that one. You can't be halfway in, halfway out. The same thing deals with what he says over in verses 31 and 32. Back looking at Luke over there. Can you read those again for me? 31 and 32.
It says, or what sovereign going to fight against another sovereign does not sit down first to take counsel whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000, and if not, while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks conditions for peace.
This is interesting here, but I think this speaks to the process that's necessary. Whoever these people was, these disciples, whoever they was in their life, whoever they was, they about to sit down and get some of this counsel and see whether they even able to go and fight this battle. How is it that 10,000 could be 20,000? They got to figure that out. They got to get some game planning together. They don't know, but but the counselors, they'll know. You know, they'll be the counselors of war. That they'll go and consult, right? The experts in the matter. You know, the king, the king is not necessarily a fighting expert, but he got them people on the payroll that could come and like, you know, how we supposed to beat these people? How we supposed to do it? Right? The king himself got to go to somebody and figure out how he supposed to get this job done. If he don't, he can't fight. He got to figure out how he could get out of it. Like, how can we just have peace instead of fighting? Like, and so there's a thing that's ahead that the king himself isn't ready for, that he has to be able to say, you know better than I'm going to heed to what it is that you're saying. But Yeshua here is saying all of this in connection to his own self, bringing in these top ones. They're the king that don't have the expertise that need to be taught and counseled. And so he's using these same kind of, he's going along these same lines in terms of, first of all, understanding what the cost is. Like, you got to go through all the things. What's it going to cost? In this case, he's not overly specific, but we're able to understand that when we look at the lives of the disciples, really their whole life turned into the gospel. That's what happened. Their lives, from the time that they met up with Yeshua, turned into spreading the message of Yeshua. They had to be willing to give up their own thoughts and desires and appetites for kingdom's sake. They had to go and they had to sit down first and take counsel to see how they was able to weather this insurmountable odds of 10,000 beating 20,000. And then in 33, when he says that if you're not able to give up all that you have, which really just doubling down on what he already said, you can't be his hot one. So again, we already know that none of this stuff is literal. The criteria for following Yeshua is giving away all your stuff. That's not what he's saying. It could be if you feel like you can't live without your stuff.
Yeah.
It could be that. Right? If you feel like these things is the most important part of you and you can't do nothing without these things, then yeah, you got to get rid of all your stuff. Mm-hmm. But the idea is that you have to be willing, you would have to be willing to do whatever it takes. Yeah, some situations, the only reason why the rich young ruler had an issue was, because he loved his stuff. Mm-hmm. If he had some other love, Yeshua would have never said, give away all your stuff. Mm-hmm. He just was dealing with his art. He might have just loved like dried mangoes or something like that. And he could have kept all of his stuff, right? But he told him to give up this thing that he loved the most. Mm-hmm. Not because that specific thing was the criteria, but it was about giving up these things that could potentially hinder the focus. Mm-hmm. And so that's what this whole thing is about, because people, your family could hinder your focus on Yeshua if their focus ain't Yeshua. Mm-hmm. He had people that was family and they was together. So the idea wasn't just you can't have family, but if your family is against what the message of Yeshua is, then they got to take a step back, because they pulling you away from the things that the Most High is going to have for you to be doing. And so that's why he's saying, he uses all this harsh language and all of these things, dying and hating and all these things. He obviously doesn't mean for you to hate anyone, because at the end of the day, the thing that you will be doing as a follower of Yeshua is loving.
You do kind of hate them because you hate what he hates.
But you love them more because you want to actually have them to come away from those things. Right? If you hate them, now you don't care what they do. You go just live your life. Now that's hate. But if every time you see them, you saying, come on, man, you got to do something with yourself. That's love. Because you actually want for them to change. If you just forget about them altogether, then yeah, that's hate. But he's not calling for you to do that. He's calling for you to call all men to repentance. And so you're not going to be doing what they are doing, but you also is going to be calling for change in those people's lives. And I think that's an interesting thing with the way that he ends all this thing when he talks about salt. Because I always think about this thing about salt, and he's saying this thing that's really an impossible thing. Could you read 34 and 35?
Yeah, the salt is good, but if the salt becomes tasteless, with what shall it be seasoned? If it is not fit for land, nor for manure, they throw it out. He who has ears to hear, let him hear.
And so salt is this amazing thing. It preserves. These people lived in this world where they didn't have refrigeration. So to preserve things, they would use salt to do it. Actually, salt is this amazing thing where the right amount of salt helps land in fertilizing. But too much salt destroys everything. So you gotta have just the right amount, right? Salt was used as a weapon. You could go through some place and put salt everywhere and destroy people's lands.
That's why I say I want to put that ocean water on the fire in California because the salt would destroy the ground.
Yes, because
property
the wrong amount of salt is bad, right? But this idea of salt losing its flavor is salt not being salt anymore.
I'm surprised you didn't bring your periodic table out.
I need a periodic table because salt is it has a particular molecular structure. Salt does. I don't know what that is. My scientists in the room, what's the molecular structure of salt? I don't know what it is, but in order for it to not be salt anymore, it literally has to change from being that.
Instead of the chloride.
It would have to change its molecular structure in order to not be seasoned anymore, not be salty. Like it is what it is because of its makeup. When you think about the idea of salt being thrown out, like in the wintertime, we know about throwing salt on the ground. Put some of that salt in your mouth and see what happens. It's still salty, by the way. Don't put it in your mouth. It's nasty. But it's still salty, though. Right? You put your fingers in your mouth after you throw the salt on the thing in your hands. It's salty. But you throwing it down on the ground. It's going to still melt the ice because it's the molecular structure of it don't change.
Don't taste the salt. There could be antifreeze in some of that salt.
Hey, I don't.
Just to remind kids.
Yeah. Just as a
Yeah,
don't actually taste the salt, but I'm saying it's still salty. That's the point. Okay. Thank you. Somebody put a disclaimer in. I'm not telling you to eat the salt.
Some of it would be fine, I'm sure, but
But-
some
but
of it has antifreeze in it.
I'm sure none of it's fine, but all of it's bad. But it's salty though, is the point. Because it's still salt. And so we have a purpose. Maybe we're not living out our purpose, but it don't change what our purpose is. And so he's saying that the thing that he's calling for his people to be doing is so much who you are, you really don't got no business doing nothing else but that.
Yes, right. We'll talk about
He started off by saying salt is good,
yes.
but it literally has to become something else in order to not do the thing that it's purposed to be doing. We have to literally be, as Yeshua ends this whole thing here saying, as what he purposed for us to be doing. There's nothing else really for us to do but to be salt. It's a huge task that we have. It's hard. It's weighty. It most of the time don't got nothing to do with what we want to physically be doing, and has everything to do with somebody else. But at the end of the day, it's all about the kingdom and what the Most High would have for us to be doing. And so we have to have our lives be aligned with the Master and be ready and willing and able to do what it is that the Messiah would have for us to be doing, strengthened by Him, by the way. Right? He's right there with us, helping us along the way as we go.
Yeah, you don't want to be the MSG salt.
I was just looking at the crystal structure of salt. It's just, I think about, first of all, I think about a few things. I think about the people who come in and they find out about all this, and then they never go through a discipleship period before they start going out and doing the work. And then it's like they're figuring things out as they're going and they're helping other people along. But then the people that they help along, it's like they only are at like they get to the point, I guess, where that person is on their journey. So then they get over here, but the people that they helped is all the way back at their beginning. You know what I mean? I think about that with like people that do sunrise to sunset Sabbath or whatever. And they eventually figure out, oh, it actually is a whole day. But the people that they went out and was teaching, they're still at the sunrise to sunset type thing. You know what I mean? That's just an example. But, or people that just start and then they never even finish, you know, because they wasn't even here for the long run. It's just that I think people really got to learn, like, this actually is like a full-time job. It's a career. It's a, you know, it's a position that you're in, not just coming through and whatever, because then you never really was even a disciple.
It's interesting when you look at Yeshua. One of the last things that he says to his disciples is to go out and make disciples. He said, go out and make disciples. That's what he said. And, you know, we live in this time where people just, you know, they just disciple themselves. But that doesn't make any sense. You can't disciple yourself. It's not what that means. You can only teach yourself what you think you're supposed to learn. But you don't know all of the things that you're supposed to know.
How would you do that?
What, teach
Just
yourself?
keep it everything to yourself and not put it around?
How would you do what?
Only making disciples of yourself. Like, what would that look like?
Oh, that's what people do. They just go and they learn themselves, and they keep what they even find out to themselves, because you only know what you sought out to. You know, you think about like doing a Google search. You're bound by the way that you're able to frame the question. So you're only going to get back what you put in terms of, you know, what you're going to ask to search for. But you don't always know what to search for. So then it makes the journey. You might get to where you're trying to get to.
Eventually.
Yeah, well, eventually. But we don't have no biblical examples of that.
Yes.
He said, go out and make disciples. They know how to do it because they was disciple first.
Yes.
It's a process that Yeshua started, and then somewhere along the way, we say, I'm able to figure it out myself.
It's like a wicked servant who buried talents.
Oh my goodness. Oh goodness.
You know?
Why is he called wicked?
Yeah.
Like, is he in his mind, he's securing the thing.
That's it.
Like, he has right intentions because he don't want nothing bad to happen to it. I'm gonna take this thing that he gave me and I'm just gonna put it in here.
Preserve it.
But meanwhile, you got these other ones that took the thing and they went and they multiplied it. And it didn't matter how much they multiplied it either.
That's right.
Because some was 30, 60, 100. It didn't matter. But they did something with it and they grew. Instead of not doing nothing. He's wicked. He's wicked for trying to preserve it. But the thing ain't there for you to preserve. It's there for you to share so it could spread. Good.
There were two things. First, Ari said if she had $1 million, she was going to give it to the homeless people out in the street.
The whole million?
But she said that they was going to have to make something more out of it. That's what she
Okay,
said.
that's very good.
Invest it or whatever.
Well, let me say, you better make some more out of some of it yourself too. Now.
But the other thing
Give
was,
it away, but don't give all of it away.
But the other thing I was thinking about was Brother Johnson up at the congregation building, and the letter that you found that he wrote. And he said, what did he say?
Somebody, because I guess he makes all of these tracts and pamphlets and booklets to give away. So somebody requested some of his pamphlets or whatever, and so his response to that was, "I'll give you." He had a long list. I'll give you this, like it was like 12 or 14 different teachings, but first you gotta. This person was from Ohio. First, you gotta tell 2 people. You gotta tell 4 people in Ohio. You gotta tell 8 people. 4 people in Ohio and 4 people outside of Ohio, and give me their addresses so I can send them information. So he was willing to give the information to the person, but it was contingent on more people getting it as a result of that person. And so
That was crazy.
it was about spreading
Yeah.
the knowledge.
Spreading the
He's
gospel.
like, I'll give it to you as long as you give me 8 names and addresses back, and then I'll give you the information.
He was
It's
about getting the
like-
word out. He was about it.
Yeah. And
And that was before YouTube, huh?
there wasn't no such thing.
Yeah, so that was he was
like it was back in the
yeah. Okay, so yeah, he was
1990.
he was getting it out like
And so that's what we're talking about. You know, it's interesting looking. It's interesting looking back as we're going through this building and finding these things about the time that was, where it was about teaching and learning and finding things out and being somewhere and learning about the ways and doing the things and not having to be somewhere and have to figure things out on your own.
That's what he said, like, share, subscribe.
Yeah, in that contemporary way is what that was.
yeah, that's what
But it was the old-fashioned way. But the thought process is about spreading. They had this thing that they at the time that I guess not that many people was on, and there was so much of a burning desire to get the message out. And the same necessity exists right now because of the fact that you got so many, just because there's so many people doing so many different things, the majority of those people are just kind of just treading on the top and not really getting to the bottom of things. And at the end of the day, it's not sustainable because there's not a foundation. And Yeshua here is talking about establishing a foundation. He is the foundation. That's what happens with the tower, that you didn't count the cost. You didn't set up the foundation. and so it falls. But he's the foundation. You know, people got so many things that they stand on. You know, whatever these things are. But you know, we got to be standing on Messiah. I literally had somebody chastise me and talk to me about something like I was doing something wrong to emphasize the idea of the death, burial, and resurrection of Messiah. That's crazy. All right, so I think I just want to end on the note that thinking about, you know, what it is that Yeshua says over here in terms of this whole thing about the cost of discipleship. The cost is a great cost. But it's a great cost with a great reward. And it's also a great cost that it's almost like playing Monopoly. It's like playing Monopoly. It's like playing Monopoly, but the amount of money that you're able to use is the money is given to you. You know, that's your thing. Like, you can't really get up in Monopoly without going around a couple times and getting your money up so you can buy the things. But if that part wasn't an issue, where the thing is just given to you and then you're able to use it, now you can do the things. And so when we think about what it is that Yeshua provides for us, he has this great work for us to do, this huge task that he wants for us to do, but he provides for us all the things that we need in order to get the thing done. We just got to be willing just to do the work. But he provides all that we need for us to do the work. And it's heavy, but he also helps us to carry the thing too. But we got to be willing to do the work. All right. Does anybody have any last thoughts, questions?
I have a question on when we were talking about loves that we might have, and you know, having love for a dry mango might not affect our relationship with Yahshua. But
Yeah, that's
I was wondering, like, loves that people have or desires that they have that are not so obvious. How do we pinpoint loves that we have that might be, you know, affect our journey with Yahshua in the future?
I mean, it's like you kind of have to be able to do kind of an examination of yourself and look at yourself and think about, first of all, we got to be able to know what it is that the Most High wants for us to be doing. But if you have these things that can stop you from doing whatever it is that the Most High wants for you to be doing, then you got to do something about that thing. You know, think about the things that you do, the time that you spend on things, and compare that to the time that you spend trying to grow in the knowledge of the Master Yeshua. Like, he only wants for us he only commands for us to really, like, be concentrated on him just one day. But do you think that he really only wants just one day? Even though he's saying, this is my day. But if that's all that you could, because think about all the things that you got going on for the other 6 days. If he's not included in all of those things, you're not doing it. But it's so interesting that he's not mandating you. He's not mandating you to get up and acknowledge him. But it seemed like you better do it though. Right? But he's not saying, like, this is my time. but it would be behoove it of you to give him that,
Yes, that's right.
because it betters your situation. So you have to really look like at yourself and the time that you spend doing whatever, and weigh that against the time that you give to the Most High. And if those things ain't balanced out, then then maybe that's a way that you could see the things that is kind of like,
What you put on top?
or high up on the priority. A lot of times we do these things and you do it so much and so often, you don't even think about it. You don't think about how much time it really takes up until you think about it, and then it's like, wow, I spent this much time doing this.
Yeah.
Like, how much time do I do doing this?
I watched somebody spend a whole day working on their hair this week.
That's
Whole
great.
day.
I can't sit and just watch stuff like this. I can't sit and just be watching just mindless things just
All day.
all day. As much as I want to do it. I really do want to just not think about nothing and just think about nothing in these things. But it's like I feel guilty about doing it, where I just got to do something constructive with myself, because this ain't it. It's not, and it's not even about right and wrong, but it's just about what's profitable
Yeah.
for you. And it's just like a waste. Like, it's so funny. It's so funny thinking about something that Brother Bob has said. I'm not gonna keep. Oh, you wanted to say something? Brother Bob, I asked him about football one time.
I don't know why you talked to that man about
I don't know why I did either. But he just was like, and he wasn't even just play. He's always so serious. He don't really joke around that much. You know that?
He laughs sometimes.
He does, but it's
dry.
not that much. But he just the way he was saying, he just don't have time. He doesn't have time, and he's retired. He's like 90 something years old. He don't have time to watch a whole football game. Because he could be reading the Bible. By the way, he can quote the whole Bible to you without even looking at it. By the way, but he don't have time to watch a whole football game, because he just would rather be doing these other things. And so, it takes some self, introspection and looking at yourself and just weighing out, where you put your time, to be able to know what your dried mango is.
Maybe said Apple will give you a breakdown of how much time you spend on different apps.
Oh
So,
my goodness! What was you
Well,
gonna
yeah, I
say?
was just gonna say that, everything that, Yeshua, was telling the people who were following, he himself was doing it. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't like he was asking them to do something
Yeah.
to follow him that he wasn't doing himself.
Yeah.
Like, when he talks about, hating your mother and your father, when they told him his mother was outside, he was like, who's my mother?
Yeah.
My brothers.
This is my brothers, those who do the will of the Most High. And I think that, you got to be willing to lose people, to gain, the Most High. You gotta be willing to lose yourself. And like you were just saying, the time you apply to other things. I mean, do you love these things more than the Most High? If you're spending more time with these things than the Most High, that's what you love. And so everything he lists in there, like warfare, the salt, we're the salt of the earth, you know what I mean? We're putting on our armor, all of these things that he's talking about, we're building the kingdom. Everything he says in there, he's doing, and we are required to do. That is our job description.
Yeah.
So if you're taking on this role, that's what you signed up for.
And it's a lot. I mean, you can't even act like it's not a lot. It's a lot. But he's there with you while you're doing it. All right. So that being said, does anybody have any thoughts, questions, comments before we are done? Okay. So that being said, for now, we'll say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.